All right, so Dean's asking basically what is the difference between the slope solver and the change in slope solver. So let's see here. Let's go. All right, let's take a look. All right, at the list of solvers here. So we have the change in slope, and then we have the slope solver. So the slope solver it just identifies whether an indicator is sloping up or sloping down. So, all right, before we get going too far here, let me get some kind of moving average on here. Let's see, let's put the SMA. Yeah, let's see, SMA 30. Okay. There. All right, there's our SMA 30. And I also need to put in, let me close that. There. And I also need to change the SMA in the slope solver, right? Change it to a 30 period so it matches the SMA on my chart. And all right, so with the default slope settings here, so if you're looking for a specific slope, you need to go into the slope settings here, and this is where you can dial things in and look for a very specific slope. So for example, let's see, let's switch this actually to ticks instead of points, and let's put in 1 tick of slope. All right, 1 tick of slope, rising, and 1 tick of slope falling. Let's hit apply. Right, and so we can see here that only when the slope is fairly steep do we actually have an output. And then, right, and then when it kind of tapers off, right, there is no output. The bottom line is that, the slope solver identifies, I guess you could say the angle, but to me, angle is misleading. And I'll show you why here. Right, the reason why I never use the term angle is because, right, this somewhat looks like a 45-degree angle, right? Fairly, let's see if we're going to change this. No, we're not going to change this. Anyways, all right. So, okay, that looks like a 45-degree angle. But what if we do this? Right? That almost looks flat now. So, right, you can't measure in degrees because your Y scaling changes all the time, right? Depending on how high price goes and how low price goes, your Y scaling constantly changes. So, to me, there's really no such thing as an angle. Whereas a slope is a mathematical formula that's fixed, regardless of your y-axis scaling there, right? We could even do the opposite, and now it's almost vertical, right? So, so anyways, the slope solver determines, whatever slope you're looking for. Now, the change in slope is literally looking for the change. So for example, stretch this out a little bit, right? So we can see here that this SMA is rolling upward. Yeah, not rolling over, but rolling upward. And so the change in slope is designed to identify possible changes in the slope, such as rolling up, or when an indicator might be rolling over. So, right, so we can see here, obviously in hindsight, we can see that this moving average is rolling over, right? So that is what the change in slope is trying to do, is identify these possible rollovers, right, or roll ups. So, and that is also why the change in slope has, let me go back here, oops, I've been using this tab for everything, haven't I? Okay, let me put my tab back on the, there we go, just put it right back there. There we go. All right, so let me pull up the change in slope page here. All right, there we go. So under BloodHound, and then under the solvers here, there is change in slope. So let me open that up. All right. So on the change in slope page, we have this image here to help provide a visual element as to what that solver is doing, right? So we can see that this, this indicator has been broken into different segments here, right, by the little dots here, and the numbered, right, the numbered outputs here also has been broken into various segments, right, to help you identify where in the change in slope that indicator might be. So there you go. That's the main difference. So the change in slope does not identify the slope. All right, I'm going to use it, the slope angle. So the change in slope does not identify, the the amount of slope. It's identifying whether an an indicator may be rolling over or may be rolling up. Right. So really, it's this section of a rollover that the change in slope really comes into play, and this section of the change in the slope is also where the, right, so if the indicator is potentially kind of rolling back up, right, this part of the roll up, is where the change in slope, really comes into effect as well. Let me move that over there. So if I put a change in slope on here, right, so in the output section, right, we can see they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right, and this image is also numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right. So it depends on whether you're looking for a long output or a short output, whether what output you're looking for. And so really to kind of go into further detail, on how the outputs work, right? So that's really kind of the next step, is understanding how the outputs work. That is where I'm going to direct you to the video here, the training video here, right? So this training video will walk you through all the outputs, and let's see, yeah, it looks like the stochastics indicator is used here. Obviously, stochastics is a great indicator as an example for an indicator that kind of does these sine wave patterns here. So, all right, so Dean, I hope that kind of helps clarify the differences there. So if you're trying to identify when an indicator might be rolling over or rolling up, then that's when you use the change in slope. If you just want to identify when an indicator has a steep slope on it, or maybe a shallow slope on it, that's when you'd want to use the slope solver. Like we can also do, so we can also identify when, there you go. So we could try and identify when an indicator is flat-ish. Right, so by, let's see, let's do 0.3. Apply. Yeah, there we go. So, all right. So as that SMA is rolling over, right, obviously it kind of goes into a flat-ish kind of state there. So, yeah. So, all right, good. Looks like Dean got squared away there. So hopefully Dean has given you guys an idea of the other kinds of questions you can ask in this workshop, right? So this workshop is not only for building trading signals or stuff. This workshop is here to kind of learn, anything and everything about using BloodHound. So, or at least I'm here to help point you in the right direction. So.